My husband was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus and had major surgery for it. He became quite down on himself about 6 months after the surgery. He wouldn't get out of bed and he wouldn't bother shaving or washing, and he was such a particular person prior to that. He would polish his shoes whether they needed polishing or not. So I knew there was something deeply wrong when he was letting himself go. And I'd spoke to a colleague at work, a doctor. I worked up in Edinburgh at the time, and she'd said, "Have you heard of the Maggie Centre?" And I'd said, "No, I haven't." She said, "Well, it's a centre where you can go to get help, and it's not just for the patient, it's not just for the person with cancer, it's for the family, for the carers."
I've worked with cancer patients really all my life, both as a clinician, as a therapy radiographer, and latterly as the manager of the service. And my experience tells me that there is a need for a more comfortable, relaxed clinical environment than that which we can provide in a hospital. The beauty of them being next door is that they can come here, they can have their clinical treatment, they can see their consultant or their clinical nurse specialist, and then if they want, they can just walk across the car park and drop in on Maggie's.
One of the issues that was a problem with us was his eating. He couldn't eat properly, it had reduced the size of his stomach. Andrew told us things that dietitians hadn't told us, none of the doctors had ever told us. So it was just such a fantastic facility to have, that you didn't have to go away with questions. You didn't have to leave an appointment thinking, "Oh, I never asked that," or "Oh, what did he mean by that?" You could always then just go across and say to Andrew, "They said this."
The opportunity for patients to go and informally meet with well-informed, well-educated, either healthcare professionals or volunteers, and access support, care and information, I think is something we would find quite difficult to provide at the level at which Maggie's can provide. We have an excellent information service, and we have excellent clinical psychology and palliative care services. There are some things we can do, there are some things Maggie's can do, and I think the joy of having a Maggie's Centre will be that we will make that marriage of services.
I had breast cancer. I was in my 40s, late 40s at the time, and I went on to have a right mastectomy. My mother actually was in her 80s and had cancer at the same time, and this was a double shock. It's always a shock for everyone. This felt like a double shock to me. Probably the psychological support. I think I would have been able to benefit from that very much, because I felt I was going through a very painful time, having cancer and having my mum with cancer as well.
It was just fantastic having that help, and without it, I really, as close as we were, I don't think we could have had as many happy times during his illness. And we had lots of happy times, lots of holidays still. We would go out and he couldn't eat, but I would have a main course and he would have a starter. And this is the kind of things that we learned to do. So it didn't stop us going out and having a meal. But I think without Maggie's, we would have just ended up locking ourselves in the house, not going anywhere or doing anything.